this is a show I'm pretty excited about. I'm only discussing the first season of Wings today because that's all I've watched. So there may be a few tiny spoilers for the first season, but I'll just say first of all roughly what it's about, why I watched it, and why I am happy to continue watching it before I give any spoilers, and then I might say a few small things, but nothing extravagant. So I guess the first question to answer is, why have I watched the first season of the 1990 sitcom Wings when I hadn't heard of it until last week? The simple answer is that it's created by David Angell, or Angell, Peter Casey and David Lee, the team behind Cheers and subsequently Frasier. I am massive fans of both of those shows, and I was reading a companion book about Frasier, and it mentioned that this show was created in 1990, kind of in the middle of Cheers, and it used to air straight after Cheers, so it'd get a lot of the Cheers footfall, and therefore it did relatively well in the ratings. I had never heard of it, and I thought I'll start watching it, and it turns out that in future series, and there are 8 seasons in total, I'm not sure which seasons I'm referring to, but at some point in the future, various cast members of Cheers make cameos as their Cheers characters, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So I'm very excited to see what that's going to be like, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going to continue watching it. But the other reason is that this show, which was produced under the name Grub-Street Productions, is pretty good. Now, one of the most interesting things is that the first season is only 6 episodes long. After that, they go to standard length of 22, give or take, episodes, giving us a total of 172 episodes across the 8 seasons. 6 episodes is not really enough for one to sink their teeth into, to get a full understanding of the characters and their backgrounds, and just to fall in love with it. But by the end of the 6th episode, I kind of felt, yeah, I'm getting to feel at home with this now. I'm learning, I'm feeling more comfortable with the characters and who they are. And I feel like I'm ready to go full steam ahead with season 2, knowing who the people are, who the main characters are, and the kind of comedy I can expect. So although I would have preferred a longer season 1 to give me a lot more bedding in time, I feel like what we got was just enough for me to say yes, even if there were no Cheers characters in the future, I'd happily proceed with the next season. What makes this unique is the setting. It's set in an airport, and a very small airport. We're not talking, massive. It's set in the 2 airline airport, Tom Nevers Field, which is in Nantucket, Massachusetts. Obviously, Cheers being set in Boston. Very close connection. I think Boston's mentioned in pretty much every episode in the first season, so it's it's very closely related, and it centres primarily around the Hackett brothers, who operate Sandpiper Air, which is just a one-plane airline, and we do get to see them piloting the plane every now and then, but for the most part this is set in the airport. It's a small set. And I guess having that same location is very similar to Cheers, where it's mostly set in the pub. In fact, I think for the entire first season of Cheers, they never left the pub, if I remember correctly. With this one, there were a few other locations in the first season, but nothing extravagant. The set's not as iconic or as memorable as it is with Cheers, and obviously with Frasier, we have Frasier's apartment and Cafe Nervosa and things. So far with Wings, in these 6 episodes, there's not been a set design that I've thought, look at that, that's brilliant. Characters, however, are quite interesting. The Hackett brothers are polar opposites. We have Joe and Brian, played by Tim Daly and Stephen Weber, and they're introduced very well in the first episode. I will say that the introductions are very forced, by which I mean one character turns to another and says, that person is this person, and they did this in their past, and now they do this as a job. We're told what they do very much to the point, but I don't mind that. I want to understand quickly and easily who these people are, what can I expect from their characters. It sets it up very well. Also, something I forgot to mention, which I should have done, is that this show is also produced by Roz Doyle. You may recognise the name if you're a Frasier fan. Roz Doyle is a character in Frasier, and unfortunately the producer Roz Doyle passed away, and as an homage to her, they named Perry Gilpin's character Ross Doyle in Frasier. I just thought that was a lovely little touch in another way that this, although technically unrelated, ties together Cheers and Frasier as a kind of little stepping stone. So we have the two brothers, the Hackett brothers, polar opposites. That works very well. We also have Helen, who, she's a cellist, which has not yet made a massively important appearance, but it's nice that she obviously has an outside hobby. We instantly know what she likes, what she's like as a person. She works in the, what's the word I'm looking for? The place where you buy sandwiches. It's not quite a cafe because there's no sit-in, but I guess the food hatch. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, and I don't know why I can't find it. The food counter, there we go. So she's great, and we also have Lowell, who he plays the handyman, I guess. He's not yet had a main storyline in the first season, but he is brilliant as a mechanic. He's slightly less intelligent than the other characters, but he's got a good attitude, and I think he has a pretty good heart and could do very well. We also have Roy, who I think is just brilliant. I took one look at Roy and I just thought, you are a hybrid of Norm Peterson and Cliff Clavin. And that I still stand by. Maybe my opinions will change, but at the moment I still think that is what he was created as. He owns Aeromas, which is the other airline at this Nantucket airport, and there's a little bit of friendly rivalry between the two. He gets some satisfaction when, for example, one of the plane breaks down and all of the other customers end up going to Aeromas airline. Just small little things like that. Again, he hasn't really got that much of a storyline yet. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this character and what we find out about him. And then we have Faye. Faye is described as a retired flight attendant who handles the ticket counter. She's kind of a catch-all, certainly the oldest cast member in this, I believe. She's played by Rebecca Schull, and she's a wonderful character. She's full of happiness and just seems to enjoy the world around her, and she's always there with, a quick response and a story to tell. I don't know what they're going to do with this character, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I don't know if she'd ever have a full storyline to herself. I feel like she's, although one of the main characters, I feel like she's more of a fallback character. But at the same time, she's great. Rebecca Schull is actually 92, still alive, which is brilliant to read. I haven't seen the works of any of these actors, so this is really exciting because I have nothing to compare them to. I'm not looking at this thinking, well, I preferred their performance in this. This is obviously not a carbon copy of Cheers, although it does follow a very similar format. There are elements of Sam Malone, basically in both of the Hackett brothers. I can see that in both of them. But Helen as a character, I don't see her as a hybrid or as a copy of anybody from Cheers. Lowell, I guess you could kind of say there are elements of Woody in him. Roy, as I said, is a fantastic hybrid of Cliff Clavin and Norm Peterson. Faye, not really seeing anybody in her there. Maybe Coach at a tiny, tiny stretch. But obviously I'm not saying they set out to create a carbon copy of Cheers, but it is very similar. The only issue I have with the first season, and I guess 6 episodes, again, not really enough to go on, but every episode dealt with a kind of romantic relationship, or lack thereof, I guess. You'll obviously understand what I mean when you watch it, if you watch it. But there wasn't really much diversity in the themes. Everything was very similar. Now I'm going to assume that the other 160 odd episodes are not all going to follow that pattern, but we'll see. It's not enough to make me think that it's going to be very repetitive going forward, but I would like to see a greater variety of storylines, and I'm sure, I hope, that is what is delivered. Wings is pretty interesting, and I'm happy to continue watching it. I'm not in love with it yet. I'm not, Cheers and Frasier, I fell in love with both pretty instantly. Wings, I'm not there yet, but we'll see. I'm enjoying it. I will power forward with it. If you've seen it, I'd love to know what you think of it. I will say the DVDs are quite expensive. They're regional imports. It's not easy to get hold of in the UK at all. But so far, I'd recommend it. I will discuss the other seasons as I go on. I'd love to know your thoughts on season 1 for now. My fingers are crossed for a good show. Cannot wait for the Cheers cameos. It's going to be fun.